Om Shri Sai Ram. With loving pranams at the lotus feet of our beloved Lord Sai, we welcome you all to this 64th edition of the online Samarpan program and the 97th birthday special edition of Samarpan. As Bhagwan has always said, on his birthday, on various occasions, that the day of his birthday is when we experience his bliss. And I quote from the 49th birthday celebration, November 23rd, 1974. On what day do I celebrate my birthday? On that day when all of you experience genuine ananda in your hearts. Now, when your hearts are surging with manifold fears and anxieties, and torn by miseries and losses, and driven as under of grief, declaring this day as my birthday seems to be barren of meaning. To lend some meaning to this occasion, to this wonderful occasion, we have an opportunity through the Samarpan programs to connect at least once a month with each other and to that divine source to bring ananda in our hearts. To begin, I request all of you to please join in invoking Bhagwan's presence amidst all of us through the Omkar. Once again, loving Sai Ram to all of you present here, and welcome to this special edition of Bhagwan's 97th birthday celebrations through Samarpan. As we saw a few seconds ago, the day we experience Ananda, a true bliss in our hearts, is the real day that Bhagwan wishes to celebrate his birthday. So how can we assign a date to the one who has no beginning, who has no end? And we are blessed today to celebrate this occasion and bring Ananda to our hearts by connecting with Bhagwan through Rama Aunty. Now, Rama Aunty is no stranger to any one of us from, especially those of us from Mumbai and several others who have been a part of the organization for a long time. Yet, it falls upon me to introduce her to all of you. Rama Aunty is blessed to belong to a family of Sai devotees connected to Bhagwan since her early childhood. She has been a Balvikas guru in Mumbai since the last 3 decades and is also a faculty member of the Institute of Sri Sathya Sai Education, India, ever since its inception. She is the editor of the Sri Sathya Sai Balvikas magazine, India. She was one of the 11 students selected from India to do her diploma in Sri Sathya Sai Education from the Sathya Sai Education Institute of Thailand. She was fortunate to receive this diploma from the divine hands of Bhagwan himself and was also conferred with the Sri Sathya Sai Balvikas Award for Excellence in 2019. She is a faculty of the Sri Sathya Sai National Leadership Program for Self-Transformation, which is conducted jointly by the Sri Sathya Sai Seva Organization and the Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning. By education, she is a postgraduate in commerce and has done her diploma in integrated programming and systems management. She is currently working as Assistant General Manager, Human Resources Management with the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, or NABARD. During her stint at Corporate Communications Department, the publications produced by her for NABARD, namely corporate brochures, a publication entitled Simply Development, and the Coffee Table Book of NABARD, have been conferred with the LACP, the League of American Communication Professionals Awards, in various categories during the years 2016, 17, and 18. Auntie, we are really, really pleased to have you amidst us, to listen to your experiences in the at the lotus feet of Bhagwan. I will stand no more in the way of you and our audience. Saira.
My most humble pranams at the lotus feet of Bhagwan, seated in all your hearts, respected elders, and my brothers and sisters from the Sai family. I'm here today to share the joy and bliss that I have experienced having felt the presence of Bhagwan in my life. I have always thought that the Maharashtra saints, or the saints from Maharashtra, there was something unique about them. What was so unique about them was that they were commoners. We had the Savta Mali, who was a gardener. We had the Gora Kumbhar, who was a potter. But all of them had this communication with Lord written. So I stand before you today as a very, very ordinary person. But every moment of my life has become extraordinary because of the presence of Bhagwan that I constantly feel day in and day out. Like Anush mentioned, that I have been very fortunate to have been born in a very devout family. We spent our childhood with my grandparents. I come from a very orthodox Vaishnavite family, the descendants of Ramanujacharya, the followers of Ramanujacharya. And my grandfather, that is my mother's father, okay, he would always do a lot of pujas, and Krishna Janmashtami was one special occasion where we used to have the night prayers. My father was also a very devout practitioner, in the sense that he knew almost all the shlokas by heart. He would chant the Vishnu Sahasranama, and he would always be going to, and that is how Bhagwan came into our lives. What I could tell you about my love for Bhagwan is that even before I got a chance to see him, I used to attend, my brother and I used to attend Balvikas in Chennai at Damodar Auntie's house in Adyar. But I had not seen Bhagwan physically at all till, I think, the first time I saw Bhagwan physically was when Sundaram was inaugurated. But the love that I had for Bhagwan, my father used to tell me this often. He used to tell me that should somebody talk anything ill about Bhagwan, it would upset me. I would cry, I would get angry. I would say, no, I don't want to be present in a place where when something complimentary is not being spoken about Bhagwan. Such was my attachment to Bhagwan from childhood. And I was fortunate that we lived just a stone's throw away from Sundaram. But even before Sundaram was actually erected and inaugurated there in 1976, I remember onwards, there used to be a small structure there. And informally, we used to have bhajans, and there used to be some little activities happening there. But what happened was when Sundaram was inaugurated in 1981, 19th January, and Bhagwan came to inaugurate Sundaram, it was the happiest day of our lives. But little did I know that we were to shift out of Chennai that very March. My father was transferred, and it really broke my heart that Sundaram was inaugurated, and here I was literally being kicked out of that place, which I felt was so very divine. I was really brokenhearted when we shifted to Mumbai. We used to stay in the PNT colony at Sahar. And my father and I used to come for Nagar Sankirtans every Sunday. You know, the Nagar Sankirtan used to start from Chakala. And we used to come walking from Sahar to Chakala. It's not a great distance, but my father would bring me along. And that was the initial phase in my life where I could tell you that hardcore sadhana. It was those days of hardcore sadhana. I remember we used to get up early. Even now I get up early, but get up early, chant the Omkar, do the Suprapadam along with my father, and then go about our activities. And when I did my colleging in Mumbai, and those were the days where I was a voracious reader. And what I read then, I truly benefit now. And I have used to read more and more about Bhagwan. But one book which I read set me thinking. That was the book 16 Spiritual Summers by Indulal Shah or Indubai. Now, in the beginning of the book, in fact, it is in the preface or it is in the very first chapter, I think, where Indubai says that Bhagwan says that it is not enough that you love Bhagwan, but you should find out, you should explore, you should discover whether Bhagwan loves you or not. Now, this was something I was taken aback. I never realized that I sort of, took it for granted. But what Indubai meant was the sadhana that was involved. And from that day onwards, it became a trishna, a thirst in my life that I have to find out. My life is a waste if I do not find out whether Bhagwan loves me or not. And I I used to watch people around me in Satsang, and I used to think now everybody is extremely happy, satisfied, contented. So, in some way or the other, Bhagwan has revealed to them that Bhagwan loves them. But I said, now this is missing. I do not know whether Bhagwan loves me. So, I used to carry this doubt in almost all satsangs. And I remember this one um, study circle which happened in Dharmakshetra, and Dr. Fani Banda was presiding over this. And any doubts we had to write in a chit and we had to pass it to him. And he happened to read the chit in which I had raised this question. I said, it is said that it is not enough that we love Bhagwan, but we should find out whether Bhagwan loves us or not. But how do I know whether Bhagwan loves me or not? I still remember the beautiful expression on Dr. Manibanda's face. It was like, as though he was telling a little child. He said, don't worry. He said, Bhagwan loves you. And he said, you will know it. If you do not know it by now, you will certainly know it. You will certainly experience it. That was the beginning of my sadhana. And since, yes, I told you I was very brokenhearted because I left Sundaram. I used to cry and pray and cry. And that is how Swami blessed us with a house near Dharmakshetra. We used to stay opposite Holy Spirit Hospital, which was just a stone's throw from Dharmakshetra. And I remember walking into Dharmakshetra one day, and it was the time when they were actually telling people to take up some activity. And I met Kamakshi auntie, who was the convener then of Andheri Bandra Samiti. And she asked me, what activity would you like to take up? So I said, I don't know what to do. So she said, you become a Balvikas guru. So you would be ideally suited for that. So I agreed immediately. I said, now this is Swami telling me. So every person who has come into my life is a messenger of Swami who's taken me closer to Swami. That is how I look upon everybody's presence in my life, even today. So I started training for Balvikas, and then I used to assist Babsi Tata, Babsi Auntie, whom we used to call her very lovingly as Babsi Auntie. In Takshila, I used to take classes with her. And at that time, it was like we happened to have two children, Sunil Ranganathan and Priya Krishnamachari, who were elocution winners. And it so happened that Swami had spoken about the 5Ds, and then his visit to Mumbai was announced. And so Nimish uncle as the children address him, for us, he is Nimish Bhai. Nimish Bhai and Kamla had planned a very beautiful program on the 5Ds. It was my very first program as a Balvikas Guru and in the physical presence of Bhagwan. So for that, there were beautiful canopies or colorful umbrellas which were set up in Satyadeep lawns. It looked like paradise. There was speaker, there was a singing group, and there was a drama group. So children had to speak from different points. So we occupied the entire length and breadth of this beautiful abode there in the lawns of Satyadeep. And I was very excited. And since we had two speakers from our class, I was asked to sit with one guru was made to sit with every speaker just to motivate the child, to give him some confidence. So I was told to sit along with Priya Krishnamacharya. And Babsi Auntie sat with Sunil Ranganath. And before the program began, we were given instructions by Nimish Bhai. Nobody, when the program gets over and Bhagwan starts walking for darshan, nobody will get up. Nobody will offer anything to Bhagwan. No letters to be offered, because that will obstruct Bhagwan from reaching out to other children. So I had conveyed this. We had conveyed this to our children. And the program went off very beautifully. The children did exceedingly well. And after the program got over, now this was the moment. Bhagwan started walking amidst children. And I could see Bhagwan from far. I could see him speaking to the singing group. And I could see him speaking to Sunil Ranganathan, my student there. And then suddenly this girl sitting, Priya Krishnamachari, who was also a speaker, she told me, Auntie, I want to give a letter to Bhagwan. I was horrified. I said, Nimish uncle has told us that we are not supposed to give any letters, no flowers. And I was a new guru. I was so scared, that we cannot violate any discipline. I am scared even now. I don't like violating discipline. Okay. And so but the moment I told her, no, you cannot give, I must have told her a little loudly. She burst out into tears. And then I could see Bhagwan walking towards our canopy. I was so scared. First of all, she wanted to give a letter. And here I had made her cry. Now I thought Bhagwan is going to get very angry with me, okay, for making this child cry. And Nimish Bhai is going to get annoyed with me too, because she was wanting to offer the letter. So very quickly I told her, I prayed to Bhagwan. And I told her, Priya, please don't give the letter. Just keep it in your folded hands, I said. Keep it in between your folded hands. And Swami will take it if he wants it. So I had just finished when Swami entered our canopy. And he looked at Priya and he said, "Yes, sir. What's your name?" So she said, "Swami, Priya Krishnamacharya." And then he said, very happy, and he patted her hand, folded hands, and he said, "Give." So she opened her folded hands and she took out the letter. Believe me, I did not know what she had written. It was not in an envelope, it was just a piece, a strip of paper. And she gave it very lovingly to Bhagwan. Bhagwan was so happy to get this, and he did the most spectacular thing. I've never seen him reading a letter before everybody, but this letter he chose to read. He opened it and he read. I still remember very vividly. His head bobbed from left to right, and he said, "My dear Baba, I love you very much. How much do you love me?" This was what the child had written. Can you imagine? I almost wept there. This was the question that had bothered me. And here was a child who had written the very same thing, who had addressed it to Bhagwan. And Bhagwan looked at her so very lovingly. And he said, "I love you very much." First time. The second time, he looked at me and said, "I love you very much." And the third time was the most beautiful thing. He looked at everybody around in total bliss and said, "I love you all very much." And that was the day. That was my day when my prayers were answered through this child of Balvikas. And this has been the role of Balvikas in my life. It has brought me closer to Bhagwan, and it has helped me to learn all the lessons of life. Because in Balvikas, we cannot merely tell the child, we have to practice what we tell. Because I used to tell the children, we have to chant 21 times Om Shri Sai Ram at home, children. And the Sunil Ranganathan once asked me in the class, "Auntie, we are all small." It was a very innocent question. But he said, "We are all small. We have to chant 21 times. So how many times are you chanting?" He wanted to know. He thought it's proportional to the age. But actually, it was Bhagwan who was asking me, "How many times are you chanting?" When you tell the child to chant it 21 times, how many times are you chanting? And that is the beauty of Balvikas. Like I told you, we can never preach till we practice. And that is all the more true every time we are a speaker and we are assigned sessions on different topics. We have to be extremely careful because Bhagwan is a hard task master. Unless we practice something, we do not have the right to talk about it. And there will be no conviction in our talk. So, like I told you, my sadhana and my voracious reading and my experience in Balvikas answered this question for me. So after this, I was very, very convinced that having experienced the love of Bhagwan, I shouldn't be aspiring for the love of a human. I thought it would be nothing extraordinary compared to the divine love. So when my parents were looking out for a match for me, I was not at all interested in matrimony. But it upset my parents a lot. Like I told you, I came from a very conservative Iyengar family, and it was unheard of in those days for somebody remaining unmarried. So it would be there would be boys coming to see me, and it would leave me in misery. So I would weep every time before Bhagwan and tell him that I simply do not want to get married. But when I refused to meet boys at home, my father would arrange for the boys to visit me in office. So even office became a torture to me. I would spend hours praying and crying. And during one such time when I was crying, any such argument that used to happen at home, it was on this account. My mother would always take my side and say, now let us give her a little time. My father would just not listen. So one such argument, and I had locked myself in my room and I was crying and praying. And I used to have this photo of Bhagwan near my bed. And as I opened my eyes to look at Bhagwan, what is the answer to all this? And I saw there were tears coming from both the eyes of Bhagwan. So I called my mummy immediately and I told her, Amma, see, look, Bhagwan doesn't like me crying. Okay. And if you make me cry, you see tears coming from Bhagwan's eyes. My mummy was very convinced. But my father was not with these things. And so these things continued. And one more day when I was very despondent, very upset, I stood before the altar and I still have the photograph now in my altar. And I told Bhagwan, when are you going to put an end to this? And you're not in a mood to hear my prayers. That's because you have your ears covered with all the hair. So how come you don't hear my prayers? That is the reason. The moment I said this, you won't believe, Amrit started coming from both the ears. See, these were assurances for me, telling me that I'm there with you. But it was not enough assurance for my father. And then, so it was that in 1990, a small group of students were being taken to Puttaparthi. It was the first group the Andheri Bandra Samiti was taking. And Kamakshi Ramchandran was our coordinator at that time. And Doshi auntie was also there. And I was part of this lucky group. And it was somewhere in 1990, it was the Diwali vacation. I remember it was the last week of October. So we were given a special place every day to sit, and Bhagwan would come morning and evening to speak to our group, right from asking us whether we've had our food. And one Friday, we were called for an interview. Bhagwan came and picked our group for an interview. And as we went, this was my very first experience. I had not had any physical interview with Bhagwan. And so we were all lined up, and we were a big group, 40 plus, imagine. And with the gurus fitting inside that interview room. So we had to wait our turn. And when everybody was arranged, I was left out of the interview room along with two children. And I kept waiting out because now I thought Bhagwan's door is closed and I was not sure whether I'm going to be let in. But then I sat there and I prayed, and Bhagwan himself came out. And then he said, Bangaru, come inside. So he took us inside. And because we were walking, I said, where inside? Once the door opened, there was literally no room. But when Bhagwan started walking inside the interview room, you know how the way was made, and we just followed Bhagwan. Now, what should I say? This price for being left out was that, we got to go in and sit very close to Bhagwan, literally at his feet. And Bhagwan started telling us a lot of things about like how we need to conduct ourselves, how we need to be free from ego. He asked the students whether they play football, and they said yes. The boys said yes. He said, why is the ball being kicked about? Because there is air inside. He said, similarly, if you're filled with ego, you will be kicked around in life. So he gave us beautiful lessons. Like he asked a Bengali, he said, do you eat fish? So he said, Swami, no, I used to eat earlier, but now I don't eat. You know what? The fish, we humans are very selfish. But you know what the fish does? It cleans up the environment in which it lives. So we have to be like the fish, not just eat fish. So, and I remember Doshi Aunty asking Bhagwan, how can we bring about transformation in the children? So Bhagwan said, all you have to do is to you do your bit as a Balvikas do. He said, you have to regale the children with stories from the lives of great men, from our saints. All you have to do is to talk about this. Transformation is my job. You don't worry about it. I still remember this. And then he told us, it was an afternoon interview. So he told us, Abhi bahut garam hai na, he said. He said, Sunday morning, fir bulayega interview ke liye. That will be a long interview, he told us. So then he distributed Vibhuti Prasad, and we came out of the interview room very, very happy and looking forward to this interview that he had promised us on Sunday. Like I told you, he used to come and talk to our group almost every morning and evening sessions. He had some message to give us. And on, it was Saturday afternoon darshan, because Sunday was to be the interview, Sunday morning. Saturday afternoon was my turn along with Babsi Aunty to sit in the front. He came directly to me and he said, Bola tha na, Sunday morning interview hai, lekin Sunday morning interview cancel. I still remember he did this, cancel. Ministers aa raha hai, Swami bahut busy hai. Sunday morning interview cancel. So this was the news that we had to break to the rest of the group, that Swami is not going to give us the interview on Sunday morning. Now there was a lot of discussion in the group. He said that, you know, Swami is actually, whatever he says is the truth. So definitely when he says no interview, there'll be no interview. So we had all planned for the Sunday interview actually. We had bought a gown we thought we would offer, get it blessed by Bhagwan. Children were all making thank you cards and, you know, to write and paint and to give all this. And suddenly, you know, it was like everything we were wondering, should we carry all this paraphernalia? There was one school of thought which said, no, we should not be doing it because Bhagwan said no interview. So, but a few of us thought, no, we should never be caught, you know, unprepared by the Lord. Let us go as though we have not heard Bhagwan. Let us go with all that we have prepared. And even if he does not call us for an interview, we are going to offer it to Bhagwan there. So to accept it. So we went with all these things. We went with all our finery, despite being told that we are not going to be called for the interview. And Bhagwan came out for darshan. Till that day, he had come and spoken, but that day he avoided our group, turned his face the other side and walked off. And we thought, you know, maybe he will go and call the boys, you know, and we were looking very eagerly. He ignored the boys. In fact, took a detour and he went straight into the photo. We were really heartbroken. We said no interview, but he could have at least spoken to us like the way he would speak every day. But he stood in the portico and he was looking. We were looking at him. And, you know, there was all this hush-hush going on in the group. We were all talking. And so the volunteers were very upset. They said, see, very indisciplined. We are going to send you out if you're going to do this. So we kept quiet. And suddenly we saw Bhagwan raising his hands and calling us. That's what we felt. Bhagwan was calling our group. So we all got up. And you know what happens? Your value in Prashanti Nilayam goes down because already they knew that our interview was cancelled. So they knew that our group was not to be called. So they were very annoyed. They said, now you people are breaking rules, rushing for the interview when you're not called. Sit down now. So all sat down very quietly again because we were very sure that he had called us. And then there was some activity. Then Bhagwan called out Mrs. Hejmari, and she was in charge of handling the interviews at that time. And then he called her, and then we saw Mrs. Hejmari walking towards our group. And then it was Bhagwan called this for the interview. So we went for this interview, which he said had been cancelled. Bhagwan, out of his infinite compassion and love, called us in. What about the ministers who were arriving? I will tell you what happened to them. So he called us for this interview, and as he had promised, it was a long interview. And in this interview, Swami chose to speak about our personal issues. It is not that we were told that we should not ask Bhagwan anything. But if Bhagwan asks us something, then we can reply. So we should not of our own ask any personal. So all the things Bhagwan was talking to somebody about their leg, their back pain, or how somebody wouldn't, was not keeping well or was not doing their sadhana properly. So suddenly I heard Kamakshi Aunty tell Bhagwan. I couldn't believe my ears that she was telling Bhagwan this. She said, Swami, this girl, she pointed to me. This girl does not listen to her parents, Swami. She does not want to get married. I was so horrified, complaining to Bhagwan, in front of all my children, she does not listen to her parents and she does not want to get married. I didn't want to look at Bhagwan. I was just hoping the earth would just split and swallow me up. I was so terrified. I thought now Bhagwan will fire me in front of everybody. So I tried to look very slowly. I looked up at Bhagwan and I saw the most beautiful smile on his face. Then this gave me the courage to look at him. And then she repeated this question and Swami said, but why? He said, but why? She is happy. He said, she is happy and Swami knows she is happy. He said, ask her parents, शादी करके उनको क्या सुख मिला. That's it. I was very sure this was the solution to all my problems. Here was Bhagwan telling me that she is happy. Remember, Bhagwan's sankalpa is Vajra sankalpa. At that point of time, I did not know whether I was happy or sad or what. But let me tell you, what Bhagwan said was because Bhagwan ordained I be happy all my life, and that is how I have remained ever since the day he blessed me. Or he said, Bhagwan knows that she is happy. And this was the most beautiful purpose of this trip. I came and I narrated this to my parents. My mother was very convinced and not to bother me about this, but my father did not to give up. And slowly, my mother tried to coax him. So this was one very beautiful way in which Swami solved this dilemma that I was going through. And again here, Balvikas was the medium through which my prayers were answered. And after this happened, I was actually doing Balvikas, and then we were chosen, 11 students were chosen to be part of a diploma program. That was, we had to go to Thailand. We had to go to Dr. Jimsai's school. And 4 students were actually chosen from Mumbai. One was Kamla Pandya, gold medalist. She was in law and in psychology. And other was Shobha Narayan. She's no more with us, but she was a professor, very erudite. And then the third person was Dr. Devi Rajagopalan. You all know she is a doctor, PhD doctor. And the fourth person was me, a non-entity. Well, I said, here I was flanked by doctors, lawyers, and professors, and me being nobody, I'm here in this. But somewhere I think my father, it was always my father's prayer that I should become a professor, which I never became. Which I never became. And it was once a wise man had told my father, said, one of your child, surely a Thursday born. My father couldn't remember who it was, whether it was my brother or me. And this wise man told my father that this child born on Thursday will have the immense grace of the Guru. Later on, my father told me that he was very sure it was his son, but then he later on realized that it was me, it was I who was Thursday born. And it was I who was Thursday born, and I have been in Swami's fold ever since, learning the lessons of life. You know, it is like I told you, I had this feeling as to what am I doing in this field of education here? I'm nobody in this field of education. Anyway, it was Bhagwan's command. And that is how we went and did this diploma in this beautiful school of Dr. Jimsai, just an embodiment of love. And there I learned how the students in the prayer hall, the students used to sit for meditation. And this school, believe me, was set in the midst of a forest, very sylvan settings. And Dr. Jimsai used to tell us that there used to be little scorpions, can you imagine, in the prayer hall. And we would be fidgeting, we were so scared, but we would find the children sitting in silence, sitting very peacefully. So it was there that I learned the meaning of love and how love permeates all creation. Dr. Chimsai said that if you are an embodiment of love, there is nothing that can hurt you. Whether it's a snake or a scorpion, nothing can hurt you. And when we came back to Puttaparthi after doing our diploma, again there was drama. You know how it was? It was like we were all the schools. There was this school of Dr. Jimsai, and there were various schools of values, who would all come. The students had come to get their diploma. And we were told that Bhagwan is not going to do it. Bhagwan has decided that diploma will not be given to us, but we would get the certificate and the medal, but not from his divine hands. So we were all still seated like in our finery, and we were not even allowed in that space in Sai Kulvan, the white space just in front of Bhagwan's, where his chair is kept. We were far off. Then suddenly there was major confusion, and Swami simply loves confusion, let me tell you. I've seen it, especially even for darshans. I remember in those days, when sometimes all the queues used to go haywire, and people used to enter from all sides, Bhagwan standing in all bliss watching. Okay, and so there was total confusion, and then we were all called and made to sit in, we were arranged in groups there, and we were told that we have to come get the diploma and come, not hold on to Bhagwan's feet and all that stuff. And here I was, like I told you, I'm so scared that I would never violate discipline. And but what should I say? What happened was that I was one of those people. It was like Kamla Pandya she's got several photographs with Swami in the presence of Bhagwan. But Kamla and I don't have even one photograph with Bhagwan. So here was this opportunity. But only the photograph of Kamla and myself they could not take a photograph. Why? Because we were so quick. We darted in, grabbed the medal from Bhagwan, took a namaskar and just came out. We never stood there and posed and all. But there was a video, and in the video, it is very, very clear that we are going and taking the diploma from Swami's hand. But we don't have a photo. So this happened, and like I said, the drama, like how it happened in the interview, it is Bhagwan telling me what I have learned from all this is love my uncertainty. You have to learn my uncertainty. That is what Bhagwan prepares us for all the time, to see whether we have surrendered ourselves to him, whether we take it, whatever comes our way, whether we are taking it as that is the best thing that is for me. That is extremely difficult to accept that whatever happens is for my best. And the more you tell Bhagwan, I used to tell Bhagwan, let the whole world, I still tell Bhagwan, let the whole world around me collapse. Let everything happen. I will not question you, Baba. As long as you promise that you are there with me, you're holding my hand, I have no reason to fear. If everything around me is collapsing, I have no reason to fear. Now, it so happened that I was working in Nabad, like Anush, I am working in Nabad, and we were at Poonam Chambers. Poonam Chambers, Worli, our office was. And it's in fact 25 years since the accident happened. It was the building in Poonam Chambers collapsed. Our office, I lost some of my colleagues, and the place where I sat, the cabin was literally in ruins. But it so happened that I was not there on that day. Bhagwan cared that I did not even have to go through the trauma of this experience. Where was I? I was in Prashanti, doing Prashanti Seva. That was the very initial phase of my career. We could take leave. They had less responsibilities, but as responsibilities became more, these are all different phases in life. That is why we should grab every opportunity and enjoy the present. That's very important, because we never know, in future we might never get a chance to do it. Circumstances in life become that. So I used to do Seva March and September, both the times I used to go. And this crash happened in September actually, and I was happily in this divine abode. I still remember Nimishba and Kamla calling me and telling me this, that the place where I work had collapsed, because when you're in Puttaparthi, you're totally blissfully cut off from everything that happens. And how I had escaped from it. And later on, when I joined back, I heard the stories of trauma of my colleagues. And I went and saw the place. The first floor where I sit had caved in completely down. And Bhagwan had saved me from this. It was literally because I kept telling Bhagwan, let the whole world collapse around me. But I'm not going to literally collapse that time. But Bhagwan saw to it that I was left untouched. Always was very particular that I never miss my Balvikas classes. And so happened that I used to take class on Friday. And it was suddenly after this building collapsed. Actually, we had no place. So NABARD was scouting for a place, and there was Reserve Bank of India. We actually, at that time, we branched off from Reserve Bank of India, but now we are a separate entity by ourselves. We are a development financial institution. So we were to shift to Belapur. That was the whispers in the corridor. I said, my God, if we are going to shift to Belapur, I will have to travel by the train, and it will take a long time staying in Andheri for me to get back. What was the result? I will not be able to take my Friday class. That was what trouble me. And so then I started praying to Bhagwan and I started crying as usual. I've always been a crybaby. I started crying, saying that Bhagwan, I have to take my class. On Sundays, what used to happen was mostly parents used to take their children out. So that is how we had our class on Friday. And everything was set. The news item appeared in the paper also, Nabat to shift to Belapur, etc. And we had packed up, and that Monday we were to shift. Weekend was spent packing. Monday, when I went to work, and suddenly I heard some whispers which said that the deal was actually not going through, the lease deal between. And so Nabad was not to shift to Belapur. I couldn't believe it. So I went into the MD secretariat, and there was Mrs. Kamla. She was also a Kamla who was also a great devotee of Bhagwan now. And I asked her, she was the personal secretary of MD. She said, yes, we are not shifting to Belapur. Well, you can imagine my joy. Wait, the best thing was yet to come. We were not shifting to Belapur, fine. But what worried me then? Where are we shifting to? That still worried me. Maybe someplace beyond Belapur. But then it was, how Swami does it in his own inimitable style. That and the rewards that come are really, really nice when you don't actually ask for it. I did not ask him. I only told him that I cannot go to Belapur. But Nabat shifted to MIDC, which was my backyard. Okay. And I had to just walk 12 minutes to reach office. For 2 glorious years, this is a luxury in Mumbai, walking to your place of work. And 2 glorious years I spent walking to this place of work. And let me tell you, I made good use of the time. Like I told you, I was a voracious reader, and I always caught up with my reading. See how Bhagwan is. When all you had to do is tell him that, I do not want to go to Bela. And that's my mother. Yes. And she wants an assurance that I'm here. Okay? And here was Bhagwan sharing his love and telling me, don't worry, I brought the office to your backyard. Such is Bhagwan's love for us. And everything I read, I always put it to the test, like how I read, no? It is not enough that you love Bhagwan, but you have to find out. That was in me. Not to just accept it, but you have to read it and experience it. That was it. And one New Year's Eve, I found myself at Puttaparthi. Decided to go to Puttaparthi. And I realized that Jyoti, who's a singer, she's our ex-alumni. She's a professional singer now who sings in the name of Kanakavali. She also happened to be there. And we were elated to be in each other's company. And I said, oh, wow, Jyoti. And she was reading a book. She's also a voracious reader. I said, what book are you reading? She was reading something about the power of positive thinking. So I just snatched the book from her during darshan time. I read. And then I asked Swami, the dialogue I had with Swami was, is it really true, Swami, what he's telling? Does it really happen? Because I read things like all you have to do is to do prayerize, pictureize, and actualize. This you pray, you picture what you want to happen, and it happens. Okay, and there were incidents where people got away from concentration camps of the Nazis by the power of positive thinking. I said, is it possible, Bhagwan? Is it possible? Oh, Bhagwan, I said, now, Jyoti, let us put this to the test. Let us pray that on 1st January, we will be getting token number 1, and we will be sitting on line number 1, and we will have the most beautiful darshan of Bhagwan. So it was like, praying with humility. It's not like commanding Bhagwan, we want to be there. So we prayed and we prayed and we were so excited. The eve. But you know how Bhagwan's plans are always different. We both overslept. The alarm went off, and those were the days of tokens. You had to sit in rows to take the tokens. And there were only some number of rows which qualified for the tokens, and all the fellows who came late were left out. You can't pick up a token. You're in the, it's called the late rows. They will allow you to go in and sit after all the token people have gone inside. So Jyoti and myself found we were seated in the very first late row. We had missed the tokens. Tokens were not yet taken, but we had missed our opportunity. I was like, Jyoti, now what is this? She said, come on, let's pray. It's not, nothing is lost. Let's pray. Let us picture ourselves there in the first line there. So we continue with our prayers. And there was this auntie who used to keep the tokens in the small bags, the noise of the tokens, that would all accelerate our heartbeat every time she moved from here to there. And so she was moving around and she kept counting the rows. You can imagine New Year's Eve, the people had lined up so early to form those token lines. And it was like there was this foreigners crowd from Christmas onwards, and huge crowd. But this auntie who was to distribute the tokens realized that there was one token, like she had more. In other words, she could include one more row in the token rows. And here we were there in the first late row. So we were promoted from the first late row. We joined the ranks of the token rows. Wow, we breathed a sigh of relief. We are in the token rows. Can you imagine? I said, no, but we still have to get the token number 1. And do you know what? Since we were the last row, the tokens were given to everybody. Whatever was the last token left in that bag would be our token. So we prayed to Bhagwan. It was almost impossible for that number 1 to elude so many rows. We saw everybody picking up tokens, and they were pointing out, afterward they pick up token, they would point out 2, 3, and then there would be like, a lot of rejoicing in the row. And we were watching with bated breath. Nobody got number 1. Well, nobody got number 1 because that was the token left in the bag for our row. We got number 1 and we occupied the first row and had the most beautiful darshan of Bhagwan. See, it is immaterial where you sit or what row you get. But what was the lesson which I learned from this? I learned that it's very important to think positively, to pray, to actually actualize, to prayerize, and to visualize the situation and then it actualize. That was the lesson. That was what God confirmed to me that day by playing this little drama. Otherwise, it is immaterial. Everybody who sits there gets the love of Bhagwan. But see how Bhagwan, out of his love and compassion, chooses to teach us so many steps in this dance of life. And that is why this journey is so very beautiful. Because if we look upon this journey of life, it would be sheer boredom. But if you look at it, if you look at every moment of your life as a miracle, because there is a miracle unfolding, I believe, every moment of our life. It is all in our perception, how we view it. If we are ready to see the miracle, it is there. And if we are not able to see the miracle, even if it is looming large in front of our eyes, we will never be able to see it. What more miracle do we want when we are present in this Kali Yuga, when Bhagwan has taken birth, has walked amidst us, has taught us, we've had the beautiful opportunity of Sambhashan, Darshan, Sparshan, and Sambhashan with the avatar of the Yuga. But what is important is for us to retain this presence. Retain this presence everywhere we go. Not only, it's not devotion, it's not a uniform to be worn, when we go to Dharmakshetra or when we go for bhajans. It is like, I always love this definition of Bhagwan saying that what is Bhagwan's work? Every work is Bhagwan's work. Whatever you do is Bhagwan's work, whether it is at home or whether it is in office. That makes everything so very beautiful because you don't want, if you offer every little thing to Bhagwan, like the Samarpan session, which we are offering to Bhagwan. So, what we are offering to Bhagwan has to be very, very good. So, we are thinking of Bhagwan before we do every little activity, and we do that activity with that perfection because divinity is nothing but perfection, and Swami is a stickler for the most minute details. And so let me tell you things about how Bhagwan helped me in my place of work. It is like, you know how it is in the corporate sector. It is like a tough thing, a tough challenge. And once I happened to have a boss who was a total atheist. Okay? So this shouldn't affect us in any way. Everybody has got a right to do or believe in their own ideology. But then it used to happen that sometimes, we have this habit of saying, oh God, Sai Ram. It's like, it used to irritate him no end. So he used to tell me, there's no room for God in my life. So I would prefer if you don't bring in God or God's name anywhere. So it was very, very difficult for me to do this, yes, but I did try my best not to do it in his presence. And it so happened that his term had come to an end. And you know how we are all transferred. Our job is that way that we are transferred frequently. So, but what he told me on the last day was something very, very interesting. He said, Rama, you know something? He said, you are God's child. It's very astonished to hear this, the name of God from an atheist who had told me not to use God's name anywhere. I was used to hearing this at home because my mother constantly tells me, even now she tells me, she always tells me one thing. You are Swami's child. You are Swami's girl. She keeps telling me all the time. So since childhood, I have grown up believing, this has got into my head that I am Swami's child. So that morning also, I remember my mother telling me, you are Swami's child. Here, this boss was telling me, you are God's child. So I asked him, I said, but then how come suddenly you have found, a mention of God in your life? This sounds very strange from your mouth. He said, see, I have observed one thing about you. I have always felt the presence of a very powerful energy around you. And that I have realized, because you keep always saying, oh God, oh Sai Ram, it has to be God. Yes. Just imagine this. For us to experience God is one thing. But how Bhagwan manifests himself to somebody who does not believe in God, this was simply awesome. This was a lesson to me as well. This was because Swami wanted me to realize it's constantly with me. That is constantly with every one of us. The way he always promises that he is always with us. And that should be the only prayer. Even to this day, I always tell my Balvikas students, I said, it's okay even if you do not have a lot of time to do your prayer, but please do tell a heartfelt prayer. But don't ever ask him for anything other than this. Tell him, God, always be with me. Because we know our present, while God knows our past, our present, and the future. So we might end up asking something which is not good for us. And what Bhagwan says, tathastu, we will later regret it. And another beautiful thing is, we have Bhagwan with us. We have everything else. So when we have the king with us, why should we ask for trivials? We should be asking for him. We should be telling him, Bhagwan, you be with us. Once Bhagwan is with us, there is only love and love in our lives. We don't have to fear anything. And talking about fear, what is it? There are instances where we tell children as they grow up, don't do this, God will punish. God is not there out to punish us. God is Prema Swarup. Love for God. That is why Baba says, love for God. And fear of sin. Yes, you have to be afraid of only one thing. Doing something wrong. We have to be afraid of doing wrong. Because when we do something wrong, we are not on the side of the Lord. If we have to be on the side of the Lord, we have to ask ourselves this question. Is what I am doing, will this please Bhagwan? If this answer is yes, then we go ahead. I remember in my office, people always feel that I'm a very, very strict person. So they always tell me, X or Y is very frightened of you. So I'm always telling them, they are not frightened of me. They are frightened of their own wrongdoings. And they are aware that I know it. So in the same way, we don't have to be frightened of God. We have to be frightened lest we do something that is wrong and that which one might not appreciate. That should be our constant endeavor to find out every time, will this please Bhagwan or not? And another thing which I have learned over the years, we do a lot of activities, isn't it? All of us are multifaceted. In the Satya Sai organization, we do a lot of activities. But then there are people who, in fact, there are people who used to question, my mother used to tell me, like I told you, I used to come for Nagar Sankirtan walking at that time. Now, I do a different type of Nagar Sankirtan. Nagar Sankirtans are not on Thursdays and Sundays for me. I do this Nagar Sankirtan every morning. Every morning, I go early morning to feed the dogs and cats in the area. And as I feed them, I definitely offer it to Bhagwan and I chant the name of God. So what happens, even on special days, I am unable to go for the Nagar Sankirtan in Dharmakshetra because I know that my Narayans are waiting for me and I don't want to let them down. I don't want to let God down because I know God is there waiting for me in all those forms. So why I mentioned about activities? Many of the time what happens is because we are involved in so many activities, it becomes a sort of a mundane affair. Like, we just do it without realizing the efficacy or the purpose behind it. Many times we do certain activities because we want to be present there. I want to do my Nagar Sankirtan, or I want to do this because I want to be marked present for that. I think you understand what I'm saying. I want to be noticed by people that yes, I'm there. I am enjoying it, but others are also going to. But what is important in any activity is we are not going there to be marked present. we are going there to feel the presence. That is very, very important, that we feel the presence of Bhagwan in every activity. And then there is an entirely different dimension to the activity that we are doing. And like I told you about this episode, I was just telling you, my boss told me that you are God's child. Very day I came home and I was late. I always come home late, but I'm the type who visits Dharmakshatra when it's totally deserted. I normally go, even if it is closed, I just go and sit on the steps for some time, feel the presence of Bhagwan. But that day, luckily, there were some students who were practicing bhajan sessions. Okay, the students were practicing, girls, alumni they were. And so they told me, Auntie, Saram, you're coming so late. I said, yes, this is the time I reach, and I'm lucky to have darshan because Shantideep is open because you were practicing. So in those days, before Dharmashketra was renovated or Shantideep was renovated, I remember before the photo of Bhagwan, they used to keep chits. There used to be a box where chits were kept. And the devotees used to go and take the chits and see what is the message that Bhagwan has for them. Now, I was never in the habit of doing this. And even for taking decisions, okay, I never believed that didn't appeal to me. Why? Because there were different things for me. What appealed to me, maybe because I was reading, I used to open any book and I used to take whatever message that came there as the message for me. So everybody according to their needs and deeds and what what they're comfortable with. So, but that day, Bhagwan wanted me to pick up the chip because I never used to pick up chips. So the girls told me, Auntie, please pick up chip. So I told them, no, but I'm never in the habit of picking. They said, it's no, Auntie. What is the problem? It's just a chip, just a message from Bhagwan. You don't want a message from Bhagwan. I said, okay, let me pick up a chit. And I opened the chit. And you know what the chit read? The chit read, you are God's child. Can you imagine? That was the third time I was hearing it that day. That was a affirmation. Okay. The first time, the day started with my mother telling me, you're Swami's child. And my atheist boss telling me, you are God's child. And here was Bhagwan finally affirming for the third time that you are. So these assurances are simply wonderful. They are like, very important for us to recharge our batteries. And that is what happens all the time with us as we indulge in our several activities and we do our sadhana. Bhagwan is there reaching out to us in several forms. Not in one form, he sends out angels. It was like I started off with Kamakshi auntie who told me to go into Balvikas. And then I met Nimishbhai and Kamla. Under their tutelage, I have learned all about Balvikas. And then I got an opportunity to be with Sarla auntie because I was called, this was an occasion for me to learn something from her also. I was called to assist with the editing of the magazine, and that's how I learned how the magazine is to be prepared. And all the reading that I used to do helped me. And Auntie used to ask me, what would you like to do? You would like to occupy some position, be some office bearer in the organization. I remember very vividly. She used to ask me, or would you like to help with a magazine? So I would tell her, no, Auntie, I would like to work in the quiet of my home. I enjoy working and I enjoy reading. So this was very much related to, and it used to help me immensely. The reading used to help me in my Balvikas classes. So Swami puts all these angels in your life because you are being given an opportunity to learn from everybody. It is said Dattatreya. Dattatreya says that he had so many gurus. He learned from every aspect of universe around. that is true for us. The day we stop learning, we have become old. We always have to keep ourselves open to learning. And that is why I was very, very thankful to Bhagwan and to Nimishbai and Kamla when they said that your learning is not over, they must have felt. They said, you be part of the National Leadership Program for Transformation. So it is this, with this, I went into its initial stages in Hyderabad, how they did the planning, the syllabus. But all this was a learning experience for me again. And I was happy that Bhagwan has not given me up, in the sense he has not lost hope. He still feels that I am ready to learn. And that really, really made me extremely happy that here I was being given another opportunity to learn. And one more thing which I want to share about my place of work, I have told you that always transfers are there. And I had this posting in Goa. See, Goa is a very small regional office, and there's not much of business there. You know, NABARD is refinance is one of the main activities of NABARD. Other banks come and take, we refinance the loans given by others. So I was given a target. Okay, we were given a target, and we were wondering how are we going to achieve this. But then, believe me, we suddenly realized our target was met. Why? I was very keen to know who had taken the refinance from us. It was a small player. It was Ratnakar Bank. Watch it. So now, when this target was achieved, and I was told this target was never achieved in Goa. When this target was achieved, our target was doubled for the next year. Okay, you're being put to the test again. I said, Swami, how are we going to do it? And again, Ratnakar Bank came to our rescue. Now, this didn't dawn on me at all. And one day I was reading the Ashtotra Namavali. At that time, I read Ratnakara Vamshodbhavaya Namah. Om Shri Sai Ratnakara Vamshodbhavaya Namah. I realized Bhagwan, out of his infinite compassion, had done it through Ratnakar Bank and was just trying to tell me, hey, there, you have not done it, but I have done it for you. Look here, I am there with you, whether in your workplace or at home. I'm your constant friend. I'm your constant companion, and I'm your constant guide. And now I just have one more year left to retire. I'm retiring in November next year. Again, 2 years back, I did 6 years in Mumbai, and I was going to be shifted out of Mumbai. But my mother is suffering from acute dementia. Okay. So what? Because all of us are in an age group where we have parents with different problems. And I was nothing special to the bank. Why should they consider my plea? So, but I did put in my plea to the bank requesting them. And it was very, very, first was like how I did not, my term in Goa itself was to be 6 years. I forgot to tell you that. It was to be 6 years, and after 3 years, we got a chairman who was in a mood to give everybody transfers. Okay, so everybody said, come on now, apply for transfer. You want to go to Mumbai, you'll get. I said, no, but I'm happy with the tenure here. Let me finish the tenure here. I had promised myself. And they said, but later on, if you want to go, no, you will not get it. I said, we will have it. See, when the necessity arises, we should be asking for a transfer, not just like that. And so there were people who put in and applied, and they were transferred back to Mumbai. And I was left, I was the laughing stock, because they said, look at her. She thinks she's going to get it when she needs it. She's so honest, she feels that she should not be asking for a transfer when it is not required. So then after 3 years, it so happened my mother was detected with this dementia, and I put in a request for transfer there. And I put in a request, and I did not even go to head office to represent or canvas. I just put in a mail. And it was 31st March, and we were all there at office. It was past 12 o'clock. And I got a phone call from head office, and I thought it's about closing and there. But they told me the transfer list is out and your name is there in the Mumbai list. It's transferred to Mumbai. What is so special? The others were transferred before me, but there was something special. The others who were transferred had a conditional transfer. That is, they were transferred with only 3 years in Mumbai. But mine was an unconditional transfer. It was for its duration of 5 or 6 years. So now at the end of 6 years again, now when it so happened and I represented, again, Swami was extremely kind. And I just happened to meet my chief general manager the other day when he wished me for my birthday in November. And I told him more than anything, I said, this birthday is a happy birthday because I can be with my mother here. I would have had to put down my papers had I been transferred. So he told me, Rama, it's not me. You know what? There are certain things which are not in your control, he told me. He said, sometimes even when you want to transfer somebody, God does not allow it. It does not happen. You are one such person. It's God working all the time. So don't attribute it to me. It is your God who will that you should be here, and you're here. So this was this beautiful message and affirmation from others who tell me how God works. So this has been my journey from Sundaram, what started off in Sundaram, a crying girl who had to leave Sundaram after it was inaugurated. I landed in Satyam. This has been my journey from Sundaram to Satyam, and I'm still learning. But what keeps me happy, the way Bhagwan told me, is I feel the presence of Bhagwan in every little thing and every moment of my life, good or bad. Bhagwan is always with me. It's not possible for us not to have challenges, not to have problems. The fellow with no problem or challenge is the fellow in the symmetry. But we have to face these challenges, but we are lucky to have Bhagwan with us all the time. Saira.
Saira. Thank you so much, Auntie, for taking us along with you through your wonderful journey with Bhagwan. And while we await for the questions to come, there were several poignant points that you raised throughout your talk, and some of which really, I think, resonated with me personally, and I'm sure others might echo some of the thoughts that we shared. You spoke about how when Bhagwan touches our lives, even ordinary people can lead and experience extraordinary moments. And I think that is something that we have all been blessed immensely by being touched by Bhagwan. And that he loves us all very much. Every time you said, someone reminded you that you were God's child, I think it is a reminder to me and to all of us that we are Bhagwan's children, and a loving mother never forsakes her children. So the slightest prayer, even the most inconsequential prayer, like the first line, first token, darshan, he answers with the most, with so much love and care. A lot of wonderful little lessons that we picked up. And there's one question that came up, related to this first line, first token question, that a lot of people are sitting in the late row, metaphorically, that a lot of us are sitting in the late row when we came to Bhagwan. Some people came to Bhagwan's fold after his Mahasamadhi. So how can we now promote ourselves to that token row to feel Bhagwan's presence in our lives?
Yeah, so this is a very beautiful metaphor. Like you said, that we have come to Bhagwan late. That is what we feel. But Bhagwan has ordained there is a time for every one of us. And it is said the God's clock is never too slow. He knows the right time, what should happen in our lives. And Bhagwan's plans are always, many times he's upsetting our own plans. Why? Because he has got a beautiful plan which is unfolding, the master plan. And for those people who have not had, like you said, the late row, you have put those people, maybe who have not had the darshan of Bhagwan, the physical presence of Bhagwan. Let me tell you, having the presence of Bhagwan is really, really wonderful. But now that Bhagwan is no longer physically present with us, that leaves him totally free to be with us all the time. That is how we need to feel him all the time, and Bhagwan is there all the time, and we get our answers for everything. In fact, there are a lot of people who say that now that Bhagwan's physical form is no longer there, but every time we have a problem, Bhagwan immediately resolves. So we do miss his physical presence, but Bhagwan himself says, don't get attached to my body. It's a very temporary thing, but learn to be in sync with me. Learn to be connected with me all the time. That is being connected to Bhagwan. We want to tell Bhagwan, I care for you. I care for you is like being care, C-A-R-E, caring. How can we show Bhagwan that we care for him? Is by being constantly aware of the real entity in every creation. C-A-R-E, constant awareness of the real entity. That is how we feel the presence of Bhagwan. And I think this really takes us closer to Bhagwan, because the subtle experiences are far more satisfying than even an interview, in my opinion.
Thank you so much for that. And I think the acronym of CARE, constant awareness of the real entity, is something that I'm sure will stick with all of us. Probably one more question that we could take is, how do we know that we are making progress towards Bhagwan in our journey?
Yeah, this is a question which I have been asking myself all the time. Okay. See, like I told you, Bhagwan is, we are all fellow pilgrims. Okay. We are all in different stages. But what is beautiful about Bhagwan is that he tolerates all our imperfections, and he gives us a long rope. It's not like he gives us up. He never gives us. He never forsakes us. And how do we actually take stock whether we are progressing? What has helped me, let me share with you, is this habit of self-audit is very important. Silent sitting and self-audit are this is an integral part of my life, because silent sitting is a session where one is actually communicating with us. Prayer is when we communicate with Bhagavan. And self-audit, every time we take stock of our activities from morning to evening, let me tell you, it really leaves me, what to say, ashamed, because I always feel I should not have done this. I should not have done this. I should not have spoken this way. So what do? I have learned my day's lesson. So the next day, what do is I don't repeat these things which I have done. And as we keep doing this, we realize at some point of time what Bhagwan says. The distance between us and Bhagwan is what we think. We actually feel this gap bridging and us getting closer and closer to Bhagwan. And this can be done if we are very, very prompt about our sadhana. And that is especially what happens is what starts off as a mundane thing, like I told you, Omkar, all this we start doing. But later on, all this should become an integral part of our lives. Prayer becomes a way of life. Silent sitting again becomes not only a session which we do, say, for a few minutes. Silent sitting becomes a session where we are constantly aware of His. So that is the progress, and we will definitely know it when we feel this affinity to Bhagwan. We are making progress.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Auntie. I think another question that I got answered in this was, how do we read Swami's message when he remains silent at a juncture when we are desperate to seek his answer? I felt that when you spoke about silent sitting, we are listening to Bhagwan for his answer. But any other thoughts on this question? How to read Swami's message when he remains silent when we are desperate for his response?
How to get Swami's message?
Read Swami's message or get Swami's message.
How to read what is the message for us? Like, okay, in my experience, I can only vouch for this constant practice of silent sitting. But again here, when Bhagwan says, when we do silent sitting, okay, we know we have to be in tune with the voice of God. But there are a lot of people who ask, how do we know whether it is the voice of God or it is our mind telling us? You know how the mind is a very deceptive, playful creature who wants to drag us everywhere. How do we know whether what we are, thinking is the right thing? Bhagwan says you have to test it on this principle. Whatever I say is not only for your benefit, it is always for the hit of everybody. Okay. In other words, what the decision that you take should never be harming others. It can never be, that can never be prompted by God. Because even something as simple as, I remember listening to this in Swami's discourse, but we would not have dwelt on it. Swami says, even a mosquito which bites you, he says, don't use all those things which we use, no, the good night and all that. I was horrified. I said, what, Swami? We will die of malaria, I thought. But bang came Bhagwan. Bhagwan said, you want to prevent the mosquito from biting you, you sleep in the net. What did Bhagwan mean by this? Bhagwan meant for every problem, there are different solutions. But we as humans, we as divine beings, Divyatma Swarupas, we will have to come out with the most compassionate solution. That was what I learned when Bhagwan said, you don't kill the mosquito by putting all that good night stuff, but you remain protected from the mosquito by sleeping in the net. So this was not only for this situation. This is to tell us that for every problem has got several solutions, but we have to always go by the most compassionate, and the loving solution.
Thank you so much, and so many lessons packed into that small answer of yours. Thank you very much for that. We now come to an end to this wonderful session. A lot of beautiful messages coming in from all the audience members, thanking Bhagwan, for presenting us with this wonderful opportunity of listening to his message through you. So thank you so much, Auntie, for taking the time to share his words with us, despite your busy schedule and all your responsibilities at home. Thank you so much. We also say Sai Ram to your mother, who's behind you watching. Sai Ram, Auntie. It's nice to see you. So thank you so much, and we will end this wonderful evening with Samasta Loka. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sai Ram, everyone.